The café stood on a narrow Parisian street that most people passed without noticing. It wasn't famous. It didn't appear in guidebooks or postcards. No lines ever formed outside its door. And yet, for those who wandered slowly enough, it had a way of revealing itself at exactly the right moment. Its windows were tall and slightly fogged, as if they preferred to keep the outside world softened and distant. Inside, the light was warm and steady, untouched by urgency. Wooden tables bore faint marks from decades of cups set down gently. The chairs didn't match, but they didn't need to. They had learned how to exist together. It was early evening in Paris, the hour when the city began to exhale. The streets had quieted just enough to feel calm, but not enough to feel empty. Somewhere in the distance, a bus sighed as it stopped. A door closed, footsteps faded. Inside the café, time moved differently. The rain had started earlier without announcement. It didn't rush. It simply arrived and stayed. Raindrops slid down the glass in thin, uneven paths, catching the glow of streetlights and turning them into soft, elongated reflections. The sound was gentle, almost unnoticeable at first, until one paid attention. Behind the counter, the espresso machine hummed quietly, as if aware that its role was not to dominate the room, but to support it. Cups were stacked neatly, their porcelain edges slightly worn. A small clock ticked above a shelf of books that no one remembered putting there. The café's name was written in faded letters above the door. Many had forgotten it. Those who came here rarely spoke it aloud. It wasn't necessary. A single table near the window was occupied. A cup of coffee rested on a saucer, steam rising in slow, unhurried spirals. The chair opposite was empty, waiting without expectation. Outside, Paris continued its rhythms. Cars passing, lights changing, people moving between destinations. But inside, the café held a softer version of the city, one where movement was optional and silence was welcome. The air smelled faintly of coffee, rain, and old wood. It was the kind of scent that didn't demand attention, only presence. The person sitting by the window had arrived earlier than planned, or perhaps exactly on time. It was difficult to say here. Time didn't announce itself clearly. It moved like the rain, steady, patient, unconcerned with schedules. They rested their hands on the table, fingers relaxed, not holding anything. The warmth of the cup radiated upward, grounding the moment. Outside, a couple passed by under a shared umbrella. Their reflections slipped across the glass and disappeared. Nothing needed to happen. That was the quiet understanding of the café. It didn't ask for conversations, decisions, or memories. It allowed them if they came naturally, but it never insisted. Somewhere deeper in the room, a chair shifted slightly as someone adjusted their seat. The sound blended into the background, becoming part of the café's ongoing, gentle composition. A spoon stirred once, twice, then rested. Rain continued to fall. The windows framed the street like a moving painting. Buildings stood close together, their facades softened by moisture and distance. A street lamp flickered briefly, then settled into a steady glow. Shadows stretched and contracted, slow and calm. Inside, the café lights reflected off the wooden floor, creating a quiet warmth that contrasted with the cool gray outside. It felt intentional, though no one had planned it that way. The person by the window took a slow breath. Inhale, exhale, the kind of breathing that happens when nothing interrupts it. This café had seen many evenings like this one, rainy, quiet, unremarkable in the best possible way. It had held countless moments that never became stories, and that was its strength. Not every moment needed to be remembered. Some only needed to be experienced. A door opened briefly, letting in a soft rush of cool air and the distant sound of the street. Someone entered, shook off a few drops of rain, and moved toward the counter. The door closed again, and the cafe returned to its steady rhythm. No music played, none was needed. The sounds of cups, rain, breathing, and time itself were enough. The sky outside darkened gradually, almost imperceptibly. Paris transitioned into evening without ceremony. Lights came on one by one, reflected in the wet pavement like quiet stars. Inside the cafe, the moment stretched comfortably, like a long yawn. The coffee cooled slowly, but not too quickly. The steam thinned, then faded, leaving warmth behind. Nothing rushed it, nothing interrupted. And in this small cafe on a quiet Parisian street, the night began, not with noise or movement, but with stillness. The cafe grew quieter as the evening continued, not because people left all at once, but because movement softened naturally, like a room slowly dimming its lights. Conversations lowered themselves without effort, words becoming slower, pauses stretching longer between sentences until they dissolved into comfortable silence. Outside, the rain found a steadier rhythm, each drop blending into the next, forming a continuous sound that wrapped gently around the building. The streetlights reflected in the wet pavement, elongated and blurred, as if the city itself were beginning to rest its eyes. Inside, the warmth of the cafe remained constant, unchanged by the passing hours, the wooden walls holding heat the way memory holds quiet moments. Cups were lifted less frequently now, not because they were empty, but because no one felt the need to hurry. The espresso machine no longer spoke, having completed its work for the day, leaving behind a faint residual warmth that hummed softly in the background. The clock continued to tick, but its sound had faded into the texture of the room, no longer marking time so much as accompanying it. Near the window, the person remained seated, posture relaxed, gaze unfocused, watching raindrops merge and separate as they traveled downward across the glass. Each drop followed its own path, unbothered by destination, guided only by gravity and patience. Occasionally, a car passed outside, its tires whispering against the wet road, headlights briefly brightening the interior before sliding away again. The cafe absorbed these moments easily, letting them pass through without resistance. The air felt heavier now, not with weight, but with calm, as if the room itself had decided to slow its breathing. A chair creaked softly somewhere behind the counter as someone shifted position, then settled again. No one spoke. No one needed to. Paris, just beyond the glass, continued its nighttime routines, but they felt distant, softened, as though viewed through layers of water and warmth. The rain did not intensify, nor did it fade. It simply remained, consistent and reassuring. Inside, the lights cast gentle halos on the tabletops, revealing faint scratches and imperfections that told stories no one needed to hear. The person by the window closed their eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to rest in the presence of the room, listening to the blend of rain, distant traffic, and the subtle sounds of the cafe settling into itself. When their eyes opened again, nothing had changed, and that was exactly what made it comforting. The night had arrived fully now, unnoticed, unannounced, filling the spaces between moments with quiet continuity. The cafe stood steady within it, holding the calm, offering nothing more and nothing less, allowing time to pass as gently as possible. The night continued to unfold without intention, as if it had always been waiting just beyond the edges of the cafe, ready to step inside once the day loosened its grip. Outside, the rain softened further, no longer distinct drops, but a seamless curtain of motion that blurred the outlines of buildings and passing lights. The street had grown quieter, not empty, just distant, as though the city had stepped back to give space to the evening. Inside, the cafe seemed to settle deeper into itself, every surface holding stillness with practiced ease. The warmth of the room lingered in the air, slow and even, wrapping gently around the tables, the chairs, the corners where light met shadow. No one checked the time. No one felt the need to. The clock remained, ticking patiently, but it no longer asked to be noticed. Cups rested where they had been left, saucers aligned imperfectly, comfortable in their small asymmetries. The person by the window leaned back slightly, allowing the chair to support their weight fully, shoulders loosening as if they had been carrying something unnecessary all day and had only just set it down. Outside, a bus passed, its interior briefly visible through the rain, faces indistinct, movements slow and muted. Its sound faded quickly, absorbed by the wet street and the steady walls of the cafe. The rain reflected light upward, giving the pavement a soft glow that shimmered gently, never sharp, never demanding attention. Inside, the cafe lights remained unchanged, neither brightening nor dimming, maintaining the same quiet consistency they had all evening. Somewhere behind the counter, someone rinsed a cup, the water running briefly, then stopping, leaving behind the faint echo of movement. The sound blended seamlessly with the rain, becoming part of the night's ongoing rhythm. Breathing slowed naturally, unforced, each inhale and exhale stretching just a little longer than the last. The cafe seemed to breathe as well, the wooden beams expanding and contracting subtly, responding to warmth and time. Outside, footsteps passed occasionally, their pace unhurried, their presence brief. Reflections slid across the glass and disappeared, leaving the window once again to the rain. The person near the window rested their hands loosely in their lap, fingers relaxed, no longer tracing the edge of the table. There was nothing to hold on to now, nothing that needed grounding. The room itself provided enough. The night deepened, not darker, but quieter, filling the spaces between sounds with a soft continuity that felt endless. The cafe remained open, not by the rules of hours or schedules, but by an unspoken agreement with the night itself, offering a place where nothing was required and everything was allowed to slow. The rain outside continued without urgency, no longer announcing itself, simply existing as part of the night's texture, like a steady breath taken by the city. The cafe windows held its motion gently, allowing the blurred shapes of Paris to drift across the glass in softened layers of light and shadow. Street lamps stretched into elongated reflections, their edges dissolving into the pavement, creating a quiet, flowing pattern that never repeated itself exactly the same way. Inside, the air remained warm and still, carrying the faint scent of coffee, wood, and something indefinable that belonged only to rooms that had been occupied gently for many hours. Chairs stood where they had been left, no longer adjusting to new movement, their presence settled and patient. The tables reflected small pools of light, revealing the subtle grain of the wood, worn smooth by years of hands resting there, fingers tracing absent lines while thoughts wandered elsewhere. The person near the window shifted slightly, adjusting their position not out of restlessness, but comfort, as if finding the exact balance between awareness and rest. Outside, the sound of rain softened further, blending with the distant hum of the city until it became a continuous, calming tone, neither foreground nor background. A bicycle passed somewhere beyond the glass, its movement suggested only by a brief ripple of reflection and the faintest whisper of tires on wet stone. Inside, the cafe lights held steady, their warmth unchanged, creating a space where time felt less like something passing and more like something being held. No one spoke. Words felt unnecessary, too defined for the atmosphere that had settled into the room. Breathing slowed again, deeper now, naturally guided by the consistent sounds surrounding the space. The cafe seemed suspended, not frozen, but gently floating within the night, supported by the rain and the quiet. The person by the window allowed their gaze to soften, no longer focusing on individual shapes, but on movement as a whole, on the way light shifted, the way reflections merged and separated. World outside continued, but its edges felt distant, softened by water and darkness. Inside, everything remained exactly as it needed to be, nothing more, nothing less. The rain showed no sign of stopping, and no one wished for it to. It was not an event, not a moment to observe, but a presence steady and reassuring. The cafe remained open within it, holding warmth, holding quiet, offering a place where time could continue without pressure, where the night could unfold at its own unhurried pace. The hours drifted gently forward, unmarked by urgency or expectation, each moment dissolving into the next without resistance. Outside, the rain maintained its soft persistence, tracing invisible paths across the city, washing the streets into smooth reflections that shimmered under the streetlights. The cafe windows carried these shifting lights like slow-moving paintings, their colors muted and calm, never demanding attention. Inside, the warmth remained constant, neither rising nor fading, settling into the walls, the floor, the furniture, becoming part of the space itself. The quiet was no longer noticeable because it had become complete, wrapping around every sound until even movement felt hushed. Somewhere in the cafe, a cup was moved gently, porcelain touching wood, with a soft, rounded sound that faded almost immediately. The person by the window remained seated, posture loose, body fully supported by the chair, breathing slow and even. Their thoughts wandered without direction, not following memories or plans, simply drifting like the reflections outside, appearing and fading without effort. The rain outside seemed to move in waves now, not heavier, just more unified, as if the city and the weather had settled into the same rhythm. The clock continued its patient motion, unnoticed, marking time for no one in particular. Inside, the lights cast a steady glow that softened every edge, smoothing the space into something gentle and familiar. A faint hum from the building systems blended into the background, a low, comforting sound that suggested continuity and stability. The cafe felt less like a place and more like a pause, a moment stretched comfortably long, free from expectation. Outside, the street remained alive in subtle ways, an occasional car passing, a distant voice echoing briefly before dissolving into the rain. Inside, nothing asked to be acknowledged. The person near the window allowed their eyes to close again, this time for longer, not asleep, but resting deeply, carried by the steady sounds surrounding them. The rain did not change. The light did not change. The cafe held everything exactly as it was, allowing the night to continue unfolding slowly, quietly, endlessly, without needing to be observed. The cafe continued to hold the night with quiet certainty, as though it had been designed for this exact hour, when movement softened and sound became gentle enough to rest within. Outside, the rain flowed steadily, no longer individual drops, but a smooth, continuous presence that softened every surface it touched. The streetlights reflected in the water below, stretching into long, wavering lines that shifted slowly with each passing ripple. Inside, the warmth felt deeper now, settled fully into the space, wrapping around the room in an even, unchanging embrace. The air carried a calm stillness, broken only by the faintest sounds, a chair settling, a distant clink of porcelain, the subtle creak of wood responding to time and temperature. The person by the window remained still, body heavy in the chair, shoulders relaxed, breathing slow and rhythmic, guided effortlessly by the environment around them. The cafe lights continued their steady glow, illuminating the room without contrast, smoothing shadows until they blended seamlessly into the corners. No one checked the door. No one counted the hours. Time existed, but it did not press forward. It rested alongside everything else. Outside, a car passed, its headlights briefly brightening the rain-soaked street before fading away, leaving the reflections to settle once again. Inside, the cafe absorbed the moment without reaction, returning immediately to its steady calm. The rain seemed to deepen the silence rather than interrupt it, filling the space between sounds with a gentle continuity that felt endless. The person near the window shifted their hands slightly, fingers loosening further, resting naturally, no longer holding tension. Their thoughts slowed until they were no longer distinct, becoming impressions rather than ideas, carried along by the steady rhythm of the night. The cafe remained unchanged, a constant presence within the moving world outside, offering warmth, quiet, and stillness without condition. The rain continued, the lights remained soft, and the night stretched forward calmly, inviting rest without asking for anything in return. Time became soft inside the cafe, no longer divided into minutes or hours, but stretching gently, like fabric resting without tension. Outside, the rain continued its steady presence, washing the streets into smooth, reflective surfaces that carried light quietly rather than sharply. The buildings across the street appeared hazy now, their outlines softened by water and distance, as if they were slowly drifting farther away. Inside, the cafe remained unchanged, its warmth consistent, its light calm and even, holding the room in a state of quiet balance. The wooden floor no longer echoed footsteps. Movement had slowed to the point where sound barely formed at all. The person by the window rested fully now, head leaning slightly back, eyes half closed, breathing deep and unforced. Each breath blended seamlessly into the next, guided by the low, continuous sounds that filled the space. Somewhere beyond the cafe walls, the city continued its routines, but they felt distant, filtered through rain and walls and time itself. Inside, the silence was not empty. It was full, layered with subtle textures, the hum of the building, the faint shift of air, the quiet presence of others resting in the same shared calm. The cafe lights revealed nothing new, only what had always been there, gently illuminated, familiar and steady. Outside, the rain maintained its rhythm, neither increasing nor fading, simply continuing, reliable and soothing. The reflections on the pavement moved slowly, like thoughts drifting without direction, appearing, stretching, dissolving. The person near the window no longer followed these movements consciously. They existed as part of the atmosphere now, present but unfocused. The cafe held everything in place, offering stillness without asking for attention. Time passed, or perhaps it rested, lingering softly within the room, allowing the night to deepen without effort, inviting rest without conclusion. The city beyond the cafe began to breathe more slowly, its movements stretching out, its sounds dissolving into the steady presence of rain. Outside, the streets glistened under the lamps, reflections drifting lazily as water flowed along the stone. The outlines of passing cars softened before they fully appeared, their presence suggested more by light than by motion. Inside, the cafe remained calm and unchanged, its warmth settled deeply into every surface, the air carrying a quiet familiarity that required no attention. The tables stood patiently, cups resting where they had been left, no longer warm, no longer cold, simply present. The person by the window sat in complete ease now, body heavy in the chair, shoulders relaxed, breath slow and even, guided by the rhythm surrounding them. Thoughts moved gently, without urgency, without direction, appearing briefly before dissolving back into stillness. The rain continued without variation, a continuous sound that filled the spaces between moments, smoothing everything it touched. The cafe lights cast soft halos that blended together, erasing sharp edges, allowing the room to feel whole and uninterrupted. Somewhere in the distance, a faint sound drifted through the night and faded almost immediately, leaving no trace behind. Inside, the cafe absorbed the moment without response, returning to its steady quiet. The clock continued its unseen movement, marking time that no longer needed marking. The night deepened further, not darker, but calmer, settling into a long, unbroken stretch of quiet. The person near the window allowed their eyes to close fully now, not as an ending, but as a continuation, resting within the gentle presence of the room. The rain remained, the warmth held steady, and the cafe continued to exist as a quiet pause within the city, allowing time to move slowly, softly, without interruption. Stillness gathered gradually inside the cafe, not arriving all at once but settling layer by layer, until it felt complete and unbroken. Outside, the rain remained constant, its sound even and smooth, blending into the night until it felt less like weather and more like atmosphere. The street beyond the window appeared almost motionless now, reflections lingering longer on the pavement, lights stretching gently before fading. Inside, the cafe held its warmth effortlessly, the air calm and settled, carrying no urgency, no demand. The furniture rested in place, as if it had always been there, familiar and unchanging, supporting the quiet without effort. The person by the window remained deeply at rest, body fully relaxed, breath slow and steady, rising and falling in an unhurried rhythm that matched the night. Thoughts no longer formed clearly, dissolving before they could take shape, replaced by a gentle awareness of sound, warmth, and presence. The cafe lights continued to glow softly, revealing nothing new, only maintaining the calm that had filled the room for hours. Outside, a distant sound briefly surfaced and disappeared again, absorbed by rain and distance, leaving the night undisturbed. Inside, the cafe remained a steady refuge, holding the moment open without expectation. Time felt wide now, stretched comfortably, no longer measured or noticed. The rain did not change. The light did not change. The cafe continued to exist quietly within the city, offering stillness, warmth, and rest as the night carried on, smooth and uninterrupted. The night extended itself gently, unfolding in a long, uninterrupted stretch that felt neither endless nor limited, simply present. Outside the cafe, the rain continued to fall in a steady, unchanging rhythm, smoothing the city into a softened reflection of itself, where edges dissolved and motion slowed into suggestion rather than action. The streetlights glowed patiently, their light resting on wet stone and pavement, stretching into calm, wavering lines that drifted without direction. Cars passed only occasionally now, their sounds muted and distant, tires whispering briefly before fading back into the rain. Inside, the cafe remained warm and still, the air settled into a comfortable balance that required no adjustment. The wooden walls held the heat gently, releasing it slowly, evenly, as though the room itself were breathing at a measured, restful pace. Tables and chairs stood quietly, no longer responding to movement, their presence steady and familiar. Cups rested untouched, their surfaces catching soft reflections from the lights above, revealing subtle marks and textures that spoke of long use and quiet moments shared over time. The person by the window remained seated, body fully supported, muscles relaxed completely, breath slow and deep, each inhale blending seamlessly into the next. Their awareness drifted without effort, no longer following thoughts, memories, or plans, instead resting lightly on the steady sounds that filled the space. The rain, the faint hum of the building, the distant city beyond the glass all merged into a single, continuous presence that required no attention to be comforting. The cafe lights continued their gentle glow, unchanged, smoothing the room into a calm, cohesive whole where nothing stood out and nothing needed to. Shadows remained soft, blending naturally into corners, never deepening, never drawing focus. Time no longer felt like something moving forward. It felt wide and open, stretching gently around the moment, allowing everything within it to rest. Outside, the rain showed no sign of stopping, and no one inside wished for it to. It was not an event to observe, but a constant companion to the night, steady and reassuring. The person near the window allowed their eyes to remain closed, not drifting into sleep, but resting in the space between waking and dreaming, carried by the consistency of the surroundings. The cafe held this state easily, offering warmth, quiet, and continuity without interruption. The city beyond continued to exist, distant and softened, while inside, the night remained calm and unbroken, inviting rest to deepen naturally, without conclusion, without urgency, as time continued to pass quietly, almost unnoticed. The night remained uninterrupted, flowing forward with a gentle consistency that felt effortless, as if nothing could disturb the calm that had settled so completely inside the cafe. Outside, the rain continued to fall at the same steady pace, smoothing the city into a quiet rhythm of motion and reflection, where light drifted softly across wet surfaces and disappeared without leaving a trace. The buildings across the street stood still and patient, their windows dim or dark, offering no movement, no distraction, only the quiet presence of the city at rest. Inside, the cafe's warmth felt deeper now, settled fully into the space, surrounding every table, every chair, every corner with a steady, comforting stillness. The air was calm and heavy in the most gentle way, holding sound just long enough for it to fade naturally. A distant hum from within the building blended seamlessly with the rain, creating a continuous background that felt stable and grounding. The person by the window remained motionless, body relaxed completely into the chair, breath slow and even, rising and falling in a rhythm that no longer required awareness. Thoughts no longer formed clearly, drifting in and out like faint reflections on the glass, appearing briefly before dissolving back into quiet. The cafe lights continued their soft glow, unchanged, illuminating the room without contrast, smoothing every surface into calm familiarity. Time felt distant now, no longer pressing forward, no longer asking to be noticed, simply existing alongside the night. Outside, the rain showed no variation, no sudden movement, no break in its steady presence. Inside, the cafe held the moment gently, allowing rest to deepen naturally, offering a space where nothing needed to happen, where the night could continue unfolding slowly, quietly, endlessly, without interruption. The quiet inside the cafe did not repeat itself so much as it widened, becoming a broader space in which everything could settle more deeply. Outside, the rain traced countless unseen paths across the city, sliding along rooftops, gathering at the edges of streets, moving patiently toward places no one watched. Light from the street lamps filtered through the water in softened layers, no longer reflecting sharply, but diffusing gently, as if the night itself was smoothing the city into rest. Inside, the cafe felt anchored, steady in a way that did not rely on stillness alone, but on continuity, on the sense that it had been this way before and would remain so without effort. The wooden surfaces held a quiet warmth, not radiating heat, but offering it slowly, evenly, like a presence that did not need to announce itself. The air carried faint traces of earlier hours, coffee that had long since cooled, fabric warmed by bodies now resting, the subtle scent of rain drifting in whenever the door had opened before. The person near the window remained present without focus, their awareness softened, no longer directed outward or inward, simply resting within the atmosphere of the room. Breathing moved naturally, uncounted, each breath arriving and leaving without intention. Outside, the city continued its quiet maintenance, distant vehicles moving along wet streets, their sound absorbed almost immediately, footsteps passing somewhere beyond the glass, then fading into the rain. None of it disturbed the interior calm, it only reinforced the sense of separation between movement and rest. The cafe lights maintained their gentle balance, illuminating without emphasis, allowing the room to feel complete rather than arranged. Time passed without marking itself, stretching into a continuous flow that felt neither fast nor slow, only present. The rain continued to shape the night beyond the window, not changing, not stopping, simply existing as a steady companion to the darkness. Inside, the cafe offered the same unbroken stillness, a place where nothing needed attention, where rest was not an action but a state already achieved, allowing the night to carry on quietly, patiently, without repeating itself, without reaching for an ending. As the night carried on, the sense of time thinned even further, becoming less like a sequence of moments and more like a single, extended state of being. Outside the cafe, the rain continued its patient work, rinsing the city gently, gathering along curbs, sliding quietly into drains, leaving the streets polished and calm. The glow of distant lights moved slowly across the glass, not as distinct shapes, but as soft transitions, colors blending into one another without edges. Inside, the cafe remained grounded and steady, its presence reassuring without needing attention. The warmth lingered at a comfortable level, neither noticeable nor absent, simply there, supporting the stillness that filled the room. The furniture seemed to belong exactly where it was, not placed but settled, as though it had grown into the space over time. The person near the window rested in a state beyond focus, awareness diffuse and gentle, no longer attached to thoughts or images, but open and quiet. Their breathing followed a slow, natural rhythm, guided by nothing more than the calm surrounding them. Sounds arrived softly and left just as gently, the low murmur of the building, the rain beyond the walls, the distant suggestion of life continuing somewhere far away. None of these sounds asked to be noticed. They simply existed as part of the night's texture. The cafe lights continued to hold the room in an even glow, smoothing shadows and softening every surface until the space felt unified and whole. Time no longer felt directional. It did not seem to move forward or backward, only to remain stretched wide and accommodating. Outside, the rain maintained its steady presence, neither intensifying nor fading, offering a consistent backdrop to the quiet. Inside, the cafe held everything without effort, allowing rest to deepen gradually, allowing the night to continue unfolding in a calm, uninterrupted flow that required nothing and promised nothing, existing simply as it was. The quiet inside the cafe no longer had edges, no clear beginning or end, only a smooth continuity that surrounded everything within it. Outside, the rain continued to move patiently through the city, slipping along stone and metal, collecting briefly before moving on, never rushing, never pausing. The reflections on the street seemed to hover now, lights suspended in water, drifting slightly as the rain reshaped their paths. Inside, the cafe remained calm and grounded, its warmth steady, its atmosphere unchanged by the passing hours. The walls held the sound gently, allowing it to arrive softly and fade completely, leaving no echo behind. The person near the window remained at ease, body fully relaxed, awareness floating lightly, no longer attached to specific sensations, only to the general sense of comfort and calm. Breathing continued at its own pace, slow and effortless, blending seamlessly into the background of sound. The cafe lights remained constant, casting a gentle glow that revealed nothing new, only sustaining the stillness that had settled so deeply. Time felt distant now, not absent, but no longer relevant, as though it had stepped aside to allow the moment to expand fully. Outside, the city continued its quiet movements, barely perceptible, softened by rain and distance. Inside, nothing shifted, nothing asked for attention. The cafe held the night without effort, allowing rest to deepen naturally, allowing the quiet to remain complete and unbroken as the hours continued to pass gently, unnoticed, without repetition, without conclusion. The night moved forward in a way that felt almost circular, as though it were turning slowly around the cafe rather than passing through it, carrying the outside world along while leaving the interior untouched. Beyond the glass, rain continued to fall with a calm persistence, reshaping the streets into quiet channels of light and shadow, where motion existed only as a suggestion. The glow from distant windows drifted across the pavement and dissolved, replaced by new reflections that never lingered long enough to form patterns. Inside, the cafe felt settled into a deep equilibrium, the kind that forms only after many hours of uninterrupted calm. The warmth remained evenly distributed, not gathering in any one place, but existing as a gentle baseline that supported the stillness of the room. The air felt smooth and undisturbed, as though it had stopped circulating altogether, holding everything in a suspended state of ease. The person near the window remained present but unfocused, their awareness spread thin and wide, no longer centered on thought or sensation, but on a general sense of being held by the environment. Their breath moved quietly, deeper now, slower, following no deliberate rhythm, guided only by comfort. Sounds from outside arrived softened and distant, a muted engine somewhere far away, the faint suggestion of movement that faded before it could interrupt the calm. Inside, the cafe absorbed these sounds without reaction, returning immediately to its steady quiet. The light remained unchanged, neither bright nor dim, smoothing the space into a single, cohesive atmosphere where nothing stood out and nothing was missing. Time no longer felt like a sequence of moments, but like a continuous field, open and unmarked, allowing rest to settle without effort. The rain continued to shape the night beyond the walls, steady and unobtrusive, while inside, the cafe remained a quiet constant, offering a place where awareness could drift freely, where the night could continue unfolding gently, without repetition, without direction, simply existing in a long, calm flow that invited rest to deepen naturally. Calm deepened without notice, not arriving as a shift or a change, but settling so gradually that it felt as though it had always been there. Outside the cafe, the rain continued its slow, careful movement through the streets of Paris, sliding along stone and glass, carrying the glow of lamps gently downward until it disappeared into the darkened pavement. The city felt softened now, its usual structure blurred into a quiet arrangement of light, water, and distance. Inside, the cafe remained unchanged, steady and warm, Its atmosphere held in a balanced stillness that required no maintenance. The wooden surfaces felt grounded and familiar, their textures visible only where the light touched them, fading gently into shadow elsewhere. The person near the window rested fully within the space, posture loose, awareness unfocused, no longer observing the room but existing as part of it. Breathing continued slowly, evenly, without effort, each breath passing through unnoticed. The faint sounds that remained blended together into a single, continuous presence, the rain beyond the walls, the subtle hum of the building, the quiet weight of the room itself. None of these sounds stood apart. They formed a soft foundation beneath everything else. The cafe lights held their gentle glow, unchanging, creating an environment where nothing asked to be adjusted. Time felt suspended in a way that was neither stopping nor moving, simply expanding, allowing the night to stretch comfortably in all directions. Outside, the rain showed no sign of ending, and inside, no one wished for it to. The cafe continued to hold the quiet patiently, offering a space where rest could deepen naturally, where awareness could drift without effort, and where the night could continue unfolding softly, uninterrupted, without repeating itself, without moving toward an ending, simply remaining calm and complete. The night held its shape gently, neither expanding nor fading, existing in a steady balance that felt reassuring and complete. Outside the cafe, the rain continued its quiet passage through the streets, forming thin streams along the edges of sidewalks, softening the sound of distant movement until it blended seamlessly into the background. Light drifted across the wet surfaces in muted tones, never sharp, never still, shifting slowly as though carried by the water itself. Inside, the cafe remained composed and grounded, its warmth evenly distributed, its atmosphere settled into a calm that felt permanent rather than temporary. The air rested comfortably, carrying no sharp scents, only the faint trace of earlier hours and the subtle presence of rain beyond the walls. The person near the window remained deeply at ease, body relaxed, awareness diffuse, no longer anchored to any single thought or sensation. Breathing continued quietly, steady and natural, moving in harmony with the surrounding stillness. The furniture stood unchanged, patient and familiar, supporting the quiet without drawing attention to itself. The cafe lights continued their soft glow, illuminating the room just enough to maintain a sense of presence without inviting focus. Time felt wide and accommodating, no longer divided into segments, no longer pressing forward, simply existing alongside the night. Outside, the city continued its subdued rhythms, distant and softened, while inside, nothing shifted, nothing interrupted the calm. The cafe held this state effortlessly, allowing rest to deepen further, allowing the night to continue as a smooth, unbroken flow of quiet, warmth, and gentle continuity, inviting awareness to fade softly into comfort without the need for resolution or change. Quiet carried everything now, not as an absence, but as a gentle structure that supported the night from within. Outside the cafe, the rain continued to move steadily through the city, its presence woven so completely into the surroundings that it no longer felt separate from the streets, the buildings, or the air itself. Water slid along surfaces with patient consistency, gathering light briefly before releasing it again, allowing reflections to drift and soften without interruption. Inside, the cafe felt settled into a deep and lasting calm, its warmth constant, its space balanced in a way that required no attention. The air rested gently, neither cool nor heavy, simply present, holding sound and releasing it without echo. The person near the window remained in a state of quiet ease, body fully relaxed, awareness no longer fixed or wandering, but suspended lightly within the atmosphere of the room. Breathing continued at a slow, even pace, guided naturally by comfort rather than intention. The subtle sounds that remained formed a continuous backdrop, the distant rain, the low hum of the building, the quiet weight of stillness itself. None of these sounds repeated in a way that stood out. They blended together smoothly, creating a sense of uninterrupted continuity. The cafe lights remained unchanged, their soft glow smoothing every surface, dissolving sharp lines, allowing the space to feel whole and undivided. Time no longer suggested movement or progression. It felt expansive, gently stretched, offering room for rest without direction. Outside, the city continued its quiet existence, distant and softened by rain and night. Inside, the cafe held everything calmly, allowing awareness to drift deeper into rest, allowing the night to continue unfolding without urgency, without repetition, without conclusion, carried forward by the steady presence of quiet itself. The night breathed on, slow and even, as if the city itself had found a rhythm gentle enough to rest within. Outside the cafe, rain continued its steady passage, flowing along familiar paths, touching stone, glass, and metal with the same quiet patience it had shown for hours. The streets glowed faintly beneath the lamps, reflections shifting lazily as water moved them along, never settling, never demanding attention. Inside, the cafe remained unchanged, its warmth steady, its atmosphere calm and complete, as though it existed slightly apart from the world beyond the windows. The air felt settled and smooth, carrying the faint memory of earlier movement without any trace of urgency. The person near the window rested deeply now, posture loose, awareness softened to the point where thoughts no longer formed words or images, only a gentle sense of presence. Breathing moved slowly and naturally, each breath arriving and leaving without notice, blending seamlessly into the quiet surrounding it. The furniture held still, familiar and grounded, supporting the calm without calling attention to itself. Light continued to rest evenly across the room, revealing textures only where necessary, allowing everything else to remain softly undefined. Sounds from outside arrived faintly and disappeared again, absorbed by rain and distance before they could disturb the interior stillness. Time felt wide and forgiving, no longer moving forward, no longer pausing, simply existing as an open space in which the night could continue unfolding. The cafe held this moment effortlessly, offering warmth, quiet, and continuity, allowing rest to deepen further as the rain carried on outside, steady and reassuring, and the night remained calm, unbroken, and gently present. Stillness settled without weight, resting lightly over the cafe and everything within it, never pressing down, never demanding attention. Outside, the rain continued its calm descent through the streets of Paris, touching rooftops and pavement with the same patient rhythm, smoothing the city into a quiet arrangement of light and shadow. The reflections beyond the window drifted slowly, stretching and softening as water guided them along, creating motion that felt distant and unimportant. Inside, the cafe remained balanced and warm, its atmosphere steady, its presence reassuring in its consistency. The air felt gentle and undisturbed, as though it had learned to remain exactly as it was, holding comfort without effort. The person near the window remained deeply at rest, body fully relaxed, awareness diffuse and unburdened, no longer following thoughts or sensations, simply existing within the calm. Breathing continued slowly, naturally, each breath blending into the next without pause or emphasis. The faint sounds that remained formed a continuous undercurrent, the rain beyond the walls, the low hum of the building, the quiet persistence of the night itself. None of these sounds stood apart. They flowed together smoothly, creating a sense of uninterrupted ease. The cafe lights maintained their soft glow, illuminating the room evenly, allowing edges to dissolve and surfaces to feel unified. Time no longer felt linear or directional. It felt open, expansive, offering space rather than movement. Outside, the city continued quietly, distant and softened, while inside, the cafe held everything in a calm equilibrium. The night carried on gently, without change or conclusion, inviting rest to deepen naturally, allowing awareness to fade softly into comfort as the steady rain continued to shape the darkness beyond the glass. The calm did not shift or thin as the night continued. It stayed, steady and unremarkable in the most comforting way, as though it belonged permanently to the cafe and the hour. Outside, the rain maintained its patient descent, flowing along familiar routes, reshaping the streets into quiet mirrors that carried light gently rather than sharply. The glow from distant lamps and windows moved slowly across the wet ground, stretching, softening, dissolving without pattern or urgency. Inside, the cafe remained unchanged, its warmth evenly held, its air settled into a quiet balance that felt complete. The wooden surfaces absorbed sound and light alike, allowing everything to exist without emphasis. The person near the window remained deeply at rest, posture loose, awareness diffused into the surrounding stillness, no longer distinguishing between inner and outer experience. Breathing continued at an easy pace, slow and consistent, each breath passing without notice, guided by comfort alone. The faint sounds that lingered formed a smooth, continuous presence, the rain outside, the subtle hum of the building, the quiet weight of time resting rather than moving. None of these sounds repeated in a way that drew attention. They blended naturally, creating an uninterrupted flow. The cafe lights remained soft and steady, smoothing edges and shadows until the space felt unified, without contrast or interruption. Time no longer suggested progression. It felt spacious, open, allowing the night to extend gently in all directions. Outside, the city continued its subdued rhythms, distant and softened by rain and darkness. Inside, the cafe held the moment with ease, offering warmth, quiet, and continuity, allowing rest to deepen without effort, allowing awareness to drift comfortably within a calm that stayed unchanged as the night carried on quietly, steadily, without the need for change or ending. The night continued gently, without signaling its passage, as though it had settled into a comfortable pace that no longer required change. Outside the cafe, the rain remained steady and calm, moving through the city with quiet purpose, touching every surface lightly before moving on. Water traced smooth paths along the streets, carrying reflections of lamps and windows that stretched and softened as they drifted, creating a slow, unbroken motion that felt distant and reassuring. Inside, the cafe stayed warm and balanced, its atmosphere unchanged, its presence steady and grounding. The air felt settled, holding a quiet familiarity that did not shift or fade, allowing everything within the room to rest naturally. The person near the window remained deeply relaxed, body supported fully by the chair, awareness softened to the point where thoughts no longer formed clearly, existing only as faint impressions that passed without attachment. Breathing continued slowly and evenly, guided by the calm surrounding the space rather than by intention. The subtle sounds that filled the room blended seamlessly together, the rain beyond the walls, the low hum of the building, the quiet sense of time resting rather than moving forward. The cafe lights maintained their gentle glow, illuminating the space evenly, smoothing textures and dissolving contrast until the room felt whole and uninterrupted. Time no longer felt measured or directional. It felt expansive, offering space rather than motion. Outside, the city carried on quietly, distant, and softened by rain and night. Inside, the cafe held everything with effortless ease, allowing rest to deepen further, allowing the night to continue unfolding softly, without repetition, without urgency, without conclusion, simply existing in a calm, steady flow that invited awareness to drift comfortably into stillness. The calm stretched on without effort, unfolding like a long, even breath that never needed to be taken again. Outside the cafe, the rain continued its quiet journey through the city, slipping along rooftops and streets with the same unchanging patience, reshaping the night into a softened landscape of motion and light. Reflections drifted slowly across the pavement, appearing and fading without pattern, guided only by water and gravity. Inside, the cafe remained deeply settled, its warmth constant, its atmosphere balanced in a way that felt enduring rather than temporary. The air carried a gentle stillness that did not feel empty, but full, layered with subtle presence and quiet continuity. The person near the window rested in complete ease, body heavy and supported, awareness no longer fixed on any point, but spread evenly across the room, as though merging with the environment itself. Breathing moved slowly and naturally, each breath arriving and leaving without distinction, blending into the steady background of sound. The faint hum of the building, the distant rain, the quiet persistence of night all flowed together into a single, continuous texture that asked for nothing and offered comfort in return. The cafe lights remained unchanged, casting a soft, even glow that smoothed every surface and dissolved sharp edges, allowing the room to feel unified and whole. Time felt wide and accommodating, no longer passing in moments, but existing as an open expanse where rest could deepen naturally. Outside, the city continued its subdued rhythms, distant and softened by water and darkness. Inside, the cafe held everything gently, allowing the night to continue without interruption, without repetition, without direction, inviting awareness to drift further into quiet as the rain carried on steadily beyond the glass, and the calm remained complete and unbroken. Quiet remained without effort, resting gently over the cafe and everything within it, unchanged by the slow passage of the night. Outside, the rain continued its steady presence, moving through the streets with the same calm consistency, shaping the city into softened layers of light and shadow. The pavement held reflections loosely now, allowing them to drift and dissolve as water guided them along familiar paths.